Hello, and welcome to Make Your Creative Pursuits Magically Doable. This is an abbreviated piece of a workshop I teach at the Creative Arts Center called Cultivate Creative Clarity and Confidence. It's a 3-hour workshop that I teach at the Creative Arts Center of Dallas. And I created this mini workshop to share in celebration of the 2021 White Rock Lake Artist Studio Tour here in Dallas. I've been a fan and a supporter of the tour for years, and from the Creative Arts Center as well, and teaching workshops there for over a decade now. If this is your first time to discover the tour or the Creative Arts Center or me, welcome. If you're a returning creativity lover, welcome back. Over the years, I have talked with many people who said that while visiting the fabulous variety of art created by the artists on the studio tour, or investigating the classes and workshops offered by the teachers at the Creative Arts Center, that they have felt their creative dreams and desires sparked, but then they don't know where to go or how to show up consistently for them afterwards, after the tour is over. So, do any of these sound familiar to you? You daydream about rather than act on your creative endeavors. You have a multitude of creative ideas. Sometimes you have difficulty making them happen. Maybe you don't know where to start or how to begin, or you start, but then you have trouble seeing things through to completion. You feel led to lead a more creative life, and you have creative ideas that you dream of turning into reality for your personal or professional life, but it's just not happening. If so, no worries, you're definitely in the right place. During this mini workshop, you're going to learn a simple but super effective and easily repeatable 3-step method that I created that's going to help you diffuse overwhelm when it comes to your creative ideas and endeavors, to make your creative time productive, enjoyable, and doable, and to take consistent action on your creative endeavors. So, since 2008, I've coached and taught hundreds and hundreds of multi-passionate creatives from around the globe and helped them to strengthen their creative confidence and bring their personal and professional creative dreams out of their head and into the world. So you may be wondering, am I a multi-passionate creative? Here's my definition of a multi-passionate creative: a person with many creative interests and passions, whether that's focused on business or personal life or doing social good in the world, someone who sees possibility everywhere, usually a lifelong learner, someone who enjoys a variety of creative endeavors and experiences, but who often has difficulty turning their creative dreams into reality. So the method I'm going to teach you today, I call it my Magic Action Plan, is going to work for you even if you're a multi-passionate creative who has dozens of ideas and projects whirling around your brain and vying for your attention. I want to assure you that you don't have to know how to draw or paint to take this workshop or to live a wonderfully creative life. My philosophy is that your life is your canvas, and every moment is an opportunity to express yourself creatively, to enrich your life creatively, or to experience or express creativity in some way. And I also believe 100% that when you do say yes and you do finally learn how to get your creative callings that call to you in your life more often, that you will be a happier, healthier, more fulfilled human, and the world will be a better place. So a few of the examples of the way that my coaching clients have lived their dreams throughout the years: designing and selling jewelry, teaching improv workshops, renovating a historic farmhouse, gardening, creating short films, writing books, blogs, memoirs, articles, and screenplays, promoting social justice, creating a body of work for a solo art exhibit, growing a photography business, leading diversity and inclusion trainings, meditation coaching, creativity coaching, painting custom art commissions, opening an online import shop, starting a podcast, building a sound meditation and healing business, recording original music, baking and entertaining, journaling and collaging for the joy of it, and helping run a nonprofit. Those are just some of the examples of the multi-passionate creatives that I've worked with over the years. Okay, are you ready to dive in? I'm going to teach you now my 3-step process for moving past overwhelm and taking consistent, doable action on your creative dreams. I call this, again, the Magic Action Plan. And in its simplest, I call it the Magic Action Plan, I want to tell you first, because it helps you to take consistent, inspired action on your creative endeavors in a way that feels magical because it's easy and doable and fun. And in its simplest form, the Magic Action Plan is download, decide, do. So I want to take a minute to go through each of these with you. If you have a multitude of ideas whirling around in your brain, it can feel like this. I call it the creative idea tornado. So the first step, download, is I want you to stop this, pause this video, and take a minute or two right now and write down on paper all of the creative ideas that are whirling around in your mind at this moment. Simply by giving yourself permission to take the ideas out of your brain and write them down onto the page, you're going to begin to empower yourself in a way that feels very calming and purposeful. It's also going to give you the opportunity to access all of your creative callings in a more objective way. Often when you have the chance to see all of the ideas that are whirling around in your brain actually written down on the page side by side, it becomes a lot easier to choose which to focus on, which it might be better to save until later, and which you might want to release altogether. But the reason you don't normally take the time to do this on your own, or to take the time to look at all of the creative dreams and desires that you have, is that the thought of choosing can be overwhelming in itself. And it can be a little scary or sad if on some level, you think you're going to have to give up all the rest of them if you choose one. And that's where a lot of us get stuck. Or perhaps you randomly jump from creative endeavor to creative endeavor, but you don't really have a doable plan to consistently move forward with your ideas all the way through to completion. So you may have a lot of half-finished projects or additional ideas that have never been touched. If this is the case, I want to assure you that there's hope. I was you. Once upon a time, I had dozens of creative ideas vying for my time and attention. I didn't know where to focus my energy or attention. So personally, giving myself permission to choose one creative endeavor to begin with, to learn some amazing tools and techniques that my creativity coach taught me, led to some of the most fulfilling creative experiences of my life, some of which I couldn't have even dreamed of until I started down this path with creativity coaching, and others that I had been longing to do for a really long time. So for example, I had for a long time wanted to create my own CD. And once I gave myself permission to begin focusing in on playing and singing piano for the fun of it again, even though I had a multitude of creative ideas calling to me, this led me down a path of performing again, writing songs again, then recording my solo CD, Dancing in Limbo, and creating my CD release as a fundraiser that was called Infinite Possibility, a Night of Music, Art, and Women Helping Women. I enlisted sponsors. I invited 13 female artists to each create and donate a work of art inspired by the 13 songs on my CD. I created a website with video interviews of each artist, and ultimately, the event, Infinite Possibilities, had a silent art auction, a raffle, my live performance of all the songs with the band, and we raised more than $10,000 for Women International. Now, the reason that I share this story is because I want you to know that prior to learning the methods, and some of the methods I'm going to share with you today, among many others, I simply didn't have the skill or the support to bring something, a creative dream of this magnitude together and pull it off with so many moving parts and enjoy the process. So I want you to know what is possible. Since the time of my CD release, which has been 11 years ago now, I went on to get my certification as a creativity coach and then a master creativity coach. I have for more than a decade now taught and created and taught hundreds of classes and workshops, presentations and retreats. I've coached hundreds of people from all around the world. And I've gone on to create and participate in dozens more fundraising events and helped to raise tens of thousands of dollars for philanthropic organizations like Congo Restoration Sewing School, Clean Water Wells in Africa, Women International, Mommies in Need here in Dallas, and the Creative Arts Center of Dallas. And over the last several years, post-divorce and going into my own, I've taken my what was a part-time creative coaching business and grown it from a very lovely part-time endeavor into a thriving, soul-satisfying, mortgage-paying career. And it was all possible because at one point in time, I gave myself permission to choose one place to begin and learn some tools and techniques to focus and follow through that I've been able to then go ahead and apply to many other creative endeavors other than my music over the years, which brings us to step 2. Decide. So when you're, I want you to right now, step 2 is to look over your list that you wrote in the download number 1 portion of the Magic Action Plan. And I want you to view your, what you've come up with through the lens, 2 different lenses. And the first lens is going to be, this is actually the wrong slide. The first lens is going to be, it'll feel great to have this completed. So while these projects may not feel like a lot of fun, you know that they're going to feel really great to have finished. So I'll give you some examples. Maybe finishing your taxes or another big project that's been hanging over your head, even if it's not particularly creative, because you know that when you finish it, it's going to give you the head space and the heart space to focus in more on your creative endeavors. Another example may be to clear or declutter your creative space or a portion of it, or wrap up a creative project that has been close to completion for a long time, and you're ready to just wrap that up so that you can turn your focus to something new, even though you may have lost some of your initial spark that you had for that project when you first started. So again, I want you to put a check mark next to those endeavors on your first download list because they will feel great to have completed. Now, next, I want you to look over the same list with the lens of, I can't wait to do this. And I want you to place a star next to the projects or the ideas on your list that energize you just thinking about diving in and doing them. These may be ideas that you've had forever, but have never allowed yourself to begin. They could be projects or pursuits that you really enjoyed at one time, but they've been on the shelf for months or maybe even years, and you'd love to take them down and begin them now. These could just be anything. Some examples: a writing project, a podcast idea, planning a trip, making a memory book, starting a creative business, taking a watercolor course or creating a watercolor course, planning a garden. I want you to just put a star next to anything on your list that when you look at it, you think, I can't wait to do this. And after you do that, there's one more, I want you to review your list one more time and see, do you have any projects that have both a check and a star next to them? If so, great. You're starting to narrow down your creative options in a way that honors both what would feel really good to have accomplished and what will feel very enjoyable to do as well. So first, I want you to look and see, and choose 3 that you have both a star and a check mark by. If you have those 3 in front of you, I want you to tap in now to what I call your inner GPS. Uh-oh, there we go. And your inner GPS is just your intuition. And I want you to choose the one that you would most like to begin with, the one that seems to jump off the page at you and say, pick me, this feels so good, I'm ready to do this. And if it feels too difficult to choose, I'm going to invite you right now to take 3 off your list. Simply write the 3 on a sticky note, put them in a bowl and pick one. Okay, because remember, this is a place to begin. This is a place that just for this next short mini workshop, you can take this creative endeavor that you've chosen and learn how to use it and learn how to move forward with it with the tools that I'm going to share with you. So then you can go back and enjoy your other choices soon by using this next method that I'm going to share with you right now, which is Kaizen. So step 3 of the Magic Action Plan is do. And Kaizen is a Japanese term that means small steps to continuous improvement. In step 3, you will do something to move forward on your creative endeavors by coming up with all of the small steps that you will need to, want to, and get to take in order to actually complete your chosen creative endeavor. And that's how it will make doing the creative endeavor delightfully doable. Now, when I say I want you to choose small steps, I mean really, really small, laughably doable if possible, or as I like to say, delightfully doable. The beauty of Kaizen is when you take something big and overwhelming and you break it down into ultra small, doable steps, you start to bypass the blocks that keep you from taking any action at all. So I'll share an example. Let's say you want to write a book and you're currently not writing at all. You may think that in order to write a book that you need to suddenly be writing for an hour or more every single day. And I'm going to stick with the analogy of writing a book here, but I want you to allow yourself to imagine substituting your chosen creative endeavor to use this method with. So the problem with going from 0 to 60 is that the chances are you're not going to be able to do it consistently, if at all. Going from 0 to minutes to 60 minutes every single day, or even most days, is a really big jump. And your brain is going to think that that's way too big of an overnight change. It's a little bit like the creative equivalent of going from a couch potato to somebody who runs 5 miles a day. It's just not going to happen. And you may be able to write for an hour a day for 1 day or 2 days, or even 3 days in a row. But the first day that you miss, or the first day that you only write for 20 minutes when you told yourself that you were going to write for 60 minutes, your brain is going to chime in and it's going to let you know you're doing it wrong. And this is when your inner critic voice is likely to come in with thoughts like, see, I knew you couldn't do it. Why did you think you could write a book? You don't have time for this. Who do you think you are? No one's going to read this anyway. All of the inner critic thoughts. But when you give yourself permission to start small, delightfully doably small, then you make it so much easier for yourself to show up and to just get started and to keep showing up. And then it's so much easier to gently build momentum and strengthen your creative habit. So for example, if I asked you to start by setting the intention to write for just 5 or 10 minutes, 2 or 3 times in the coming week, you might laugh and say, well, sure, I can do that, but how am I ever going to finish my book that way? That is a laughably doable place to begin. And it's a great place to start because it feels so doable that you are much more likely to do it. And when you actually show up and do it, you get to experience the feeling of success, and your brain loves that and wants to keep coming back for more. Here's another fabulous thing about small steps. It really doesn't take hours and hours of writing, or substitute your creative endeavor here, playing piano or creating your website or thinking and working on your business. It doesn't take hours and hours for you to feel a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction and joy. And when you create those feelings for yourself in as little as 5 or 10 minutes, it's so much easier and more pleasant to keep showing up for those feelings of accomplishment and satisfaction and joy, rather than trying to show up even though you're having those inner insults, doubt, and judgment, and beating yourself up for not doing enough, or not being good enough. Okay, so that is the concept behind the laughably doable, delightfully doable steps. So another thing about the small steps is that even when you only stick with the small steps and maybe say write for 5 minutes most days, several magical things begin to happen. First, you remember how much you love to write, or you learn how much you love to write if you're just new to it. And your brain actually wants more of that because it feels good, even in that small amount of time. It feels enjoyable rather than like a chore. And next, by getting to your writing more days than not, you begin to slowly create that habit. You begin to look forward to your 5 minutes of writing time, and you begin to miss it on the days that you don't get to it. And as time goes by, you can slowly add to the time if you want to. You can bump up your times, 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And the thing is, you're going to begin to feel like a writer because you're writing, or you're going to begin to feel like a gardener because you're in your garden gardening, or you're going to begin to feel like a business owner because you're actually showing up and taking action, even if it's a small amount of action on your creative business consistently rather than once in a blue moon. So to finish up the writing analogy, let's say you build up to writing only 3 or 4 pages 3 or 4 times a week. That's still hundreds of pages in a year's time. So you've written your book, or at least a first draft. And more importantly, you've written it in a way that feels good and sustainable and consistent and joyful, rather than sporadic and stressed out and from those feelings of not good enough. So while using small chunks of time is a powerful way to use Kaizen, you can also use the concept to break down the entire project into as many delightfully doable steps as possible. So each week I help my one-on-one coaching clients to come up with their next delightfully doable steps to help them make their creative dreams come true in the coming week. One example is I had a client who wanted to transform his his second bedroom, which was really serving as nothing more than a junked up storage space. And he wanted to change it into a welcoming guest room, and when he wasn't hosting guests, a recording studio. Now, this is a dream that he had had for himself for years, and it was simply too overwhelming. He did not know where to begin. Clearly, there were many steps that needed to happen to make that happen. First, just by acknowledging that and breaking the project down into as many small steps as possible, I was able to help him move past the overwhelming feelings that had kept him from tackling the project for years. And over the course of a few months, he made consistent progress to declutter, totally organize the room and the closet, order furniture and accessories, decorate the room, and create a cozy area where he now enjoys writing and recording music several times a week for his own personal creative fulfillment. And he has hosted some very happy overnight guests there as well. So that's step 3. You get to come up with all of the small steps that you will need to, want to, and get to take in order to make your chosen creative endeavor happen. And then you give yourself permission to take those delightfully doable steps to start maybe 2 or 3 times a week. By using this 3-step plan, you're going to be able to slowly and organically build and strengthen your creative habit over time. So I want you to now pause the video again and just take a few moments to come up with your list of delightfully doable steps. So there are a few more ways that I want to share with you that you can use this concept of Kaizen when it comes to making your getting to your creative endeavors easier and more doable. That is breaking it down by time itself. So for example, if one of your small steps for writing your book is research, that's a good start, but that's very open-ended. Research what? And you might say, well, okay, research environment, setting, and places. That's still really broad, because you could spend days, weeks, and months researching, right? And your brain knows that it's onto you. So even narrowing it down to research famous Irish pubs, if you're writing a book that's going to have a scene with a famous Irish pub in it, even though that's more specific, you could still spend hours doing that. So if you don't tell your brain how long you're planning to do something before you do it, it's going to freak out and fill in the gap for you, and probably with something outrageous like forever or 100 hours. It's a little bit like going on a roller coaster you've never been on before. You don't know what's coming, and so you kind of feel the worst. Oh, I don't know what's going to come, but I know it's going to be scary. But by telling yourself, okay, I'm going to research famous Irish pubs for 15 minutes, your brain's going to breathe a sigh of relief and help you to focus in and make great use of those 15 minutes of research time. Anytime you want to use time, a 15-minute timer is a great way to do it. You can also use Kaizen spatially. So let's say one of your steps is to organize my studio space. Again, this is a nice start, but it's way too broad and too big of a step. So you might want to choose a small specific space to start, such as the upper left side of my desk versus your entire desk, or the first teetering pile of papers to my right, or the one box of supplies currently blocking my entry to the closet. When you use these two constraints together, time and space, you also really do a great job of giving your brain this feeling very comfortable and confident that what you want to do can be is a task that actually can be finished. So time and space, those are spatial, looking at small places that you want to, one shelf, one drawer, one corner of your office, one upper left corner of your desk to begin. And then the third is to jumpstart. Sometimes just by getting that timer out and setting it for a small amount of time and giving yourself permission to take that creative action for that amount of time, it just gets you started. And more importantly, you begin in a way that feels very safe and doable to your brain. Now, if you have time available after your 15 minutes to keep going and you really want to keep going, then by all means, keep going. I apply the same kind of idea sometimes to exercise. On the days when I'm just not feeling like running really, I put on my running shoes anyway. I tell myself I'm just going to walk around the block, and that's fine if that's all you do. And once I'm outside and moving my body and the weather's nice, 99% of the time, I'm going to go ahead and keep going for my entire 30, 45-minute walk or run. But I just needed something to jumpstart me to get over that initial hurdle of not wanting to start. You can use the same thing with Kaizen. You can just say, I'm going to just set a timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and do the creative endeavor that I want to do. And then if you want to keep going after that, set the timer for another 15 minutes. But even if you don't, you've given yourself the gift of that 15 minutes, and that's going to feel so good. And you will want that experience again. So you're much more likely to come back the next day or the day after for another 15 minutes. This is how you can use the magic action plan to naturally and organically grow and strengthen your creative habit over time. So I want to share an example. My client Channing came to me with several types of art she wanted to create and sell. She, when we first started working together, she said, I want to do commissions, I want to do one-of-a-kind art, I want to do prints, I want to do greeting cards, and she wanted to sell these in a variety of ways, in an Etsy shop, in a local group and events, and through social media. And she had so many wonderful ideas and opportunities that she felt totally overwhelmed by them. She didn't know where to begin or where to focus her attention. So during our weekly calls, I've been able to help her to get clear on exactly what she wants to create, to what the value of her art is, which project she wanted to focus on first, and she chose to finish a commission, and then she chose to stock her Etsy shop with cards prior to graduation, Mother's Day, and Father's Day. And then I helped her with how to focus, follow through, and finish with both of those projects. And more importantly, to do it all in a way that felt purposeful and meaningful and doable and fun to her. So she went from feeling scattered and uncertain to having a plan to follow each week with her next delightfully doable steps to bringing in income via her commissions and card sales. So her self-concept as a professional artist who was paid for her work grew, and she's been able to claim that role for herself with a new confidence and clarity. And the reason that I want to share, I shared my creative journey with you and shared a couple of my clients is twofold. One is I want to be an example of what's possible for you. I am not a unicorn. I am definitely a multi-passionate creative and a recovering perfectionist and procrastinator who found creative coaching and the tools that I needed and the support that I needed to commit to my creative dreams and keep growing and making more and more creative dreams come true. And this is true for the people that I work with as well as their creativity coach. And it's totally possible for you too. Always want to be an example of what's possible for people. And two, I want to let you know that all of these personal and professional successes that I've been able to create and that my clients have been able to create were made possible in the beginning because we gave ourselves permission to choose one area to focus on and to practice with that one endeavor or that one idea or project, showing up, taking the small steps, focusing, following through, and finishing. And even though I have had dozens of creative ideas and projects that I wanted to pursue in the beginning, I started with prioritizing music. And I started with that small goal of simply making music for myself. That led to playing more, that led to performing, that led to writing, to the CD release, and then Infinite Possibilities event. So by giving yourself permission to choose one of your creative projects or a portion even of a creative project or an area and practicing using this download, decide, do, and practicing using delightfully doable steps or Kaizenizing your projects, You're going to be setting yourself up not only for the immediate success of finishing your chosen project or endeavor, but laying a strong foundation for future successes. Even if you're a multi-passionate creative with dozens of ideas and projects that are vying for your attention. Okay, so I want to review with you what you've learned, this simple to use process, the Magic Action Plan, and you can use it to cultivate clarity and confidence on your creative journey. In its simplest form, it is download all of the creative ideas that are whirling around your brain, decide which one to begin with using the clarity finding methods that I shared, and then do. Using Kaizen, break down your chosen endeavor into as many delightfully doable steps as possible. And then give yourself permission to use those small steps, to enjoy those small steps 2 or 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be every day. And when used consistently, this is going to help you to make your personal and professional creative dreams come true in a way that you might not even imagine how far it can take you. And most importantly, in ways that feel doable, joyful, and purposeful. So I'd like to share with you a few of the reasons that people work with me as their coach and that I continue to work with my own coaches and always will. It takes time and intention to retrain decades worth of thought patterns that have brought us to where we are on our creative journey. And working with someone who knows how to help you spot those thoughts that are holding you back and release them or replace them is extremely beneficial. We are in the eye of the hurricane when it comes to our struggles and challenges, and working with somebody who has perspective, who isn't in our mind and in our own struggles, and who has the expertise and experience to help us cut to the chase, get out of our own way, and stay on track to move forward is priceless. And the accountability of working with someone week after week is also something that is hard to replicate on our own. And knowing that each week you'll have a plan to keep moving forward, that you will know exactly which delightfully doable steps to take in the coming week is so calming and feels so good to help you show up consistently for your creative dreams. And having somebody to coach your mind as you learn and practice to assimilate the tools I've shared today and lots of other tools and techniques that I have studied and learned and practiced over the years until they become second nature to you as you cultivate your own creative clarity and confidence along the way. So I'd love to give you now an invitation to book a Creative Oasis Clarity call with me. If you want to know more about what it's like to work with a coach one-on-one and how we could work together on a one-on-one basis. Even though I've shared some of my favorite, most empowering and valuable methods with you today, or a few of them, there's so much more, but it's what you do with what you've learned today or don't do moving forward that's going to dictate the results and level of the success that you create. So you can visit my website at www.creativeoasiscoaching.me. I think it's up on the screen there for the Creative Oasis Clarity Call. And, I just want to say that it's a little bit like working with a coach is one of the reasons for it is a little bit like learning a new language. You don't take a 30-minute or a 60-minute workshop and become fluent in conversational Spanish, right? You need to practice that. You need to put it into the real world and practice it within the context of your real life to become bilingual. Another example might be preparing for a marathon. You may know intellectually what you'll need to do to prepare for a marathon. You could read a book. You could listen to a podcast. You could watch a movie, but working with a personal trainer who can see where you're struggling, who can help you course correct, who can hold you accountable and celebrate the wins with you along the way, makes getting to the finish line so much easier and faster and more fun. And it's the same thing with the creative coaching relationship. Rather than listening to another book or listening to another podcast or taking another online course or workshop, working with me as your creativity coach one-on-one gives you a totally personalized support for your unique creative journey from someone who has perspective, years of experience, and a passion for helping people to bring their creative ideas out of their heads and into the world. Now, I also want to invite you to join me for the next workshop I'll be teaching at the Creative Arts Center, where we'll go even deeper with the process that you learned today and learn some of my other favorite creative coaching tools and techniques. You can go online to thecreativeartscenter.org and workshops-foundations-creativity and sign up that way, or call the Creative Arts Center and register that way. And lastly, I'm going to be teaching a free masterclass called Into Overwhelm, Find Creative Flow in 3 Simple Steps, where I will go over what I've taught today in a little more depth and detail. That's at the end of this month, October. So let's connect on social media, and connect with me on either Instagram or your favorite social media hangouts for more delightfully doable ways to take action on your creative endeavors in ways that feel magical. And I want you to have fun with this workshop. Have fun with what you learn. Give yourself permission to give it a try and see how it works for you. It's worked so beautifully. It's changed my life completely, and it's changed the life of the clients that I work with. And so it's always exciting for me to have the opportunity to share this with people who have not heard of it before. This workshop was definitely created and shared with love and light, and the belief that when you bring your creative dreams out of your head and into the world, you'll be a happier, healthier, more fulfilled human, and the world will be a better place. Thanks so much for joining me today, and have a great time on the tour. Bye.